I mean, it's not good. I mean, if you look at, we didn't have the homeless issue that we have now until he became mayor. Why do we have that homeless issue? Because he goes to Washington, D.C. every month and asks for more money for a homeless problem. If, I mean, I have dealt, and I'll start with the homeless. I've dealt with the homeless in the business that we're in. I've seen them at site, on properties that are going to be developed and that. At this point, a majority of them, they're not even from Texas, much less San Antonio. So when you tell people that we have something here for you, and that's a lot of these people, that's the lifestyle that they choose. I know this, my uncle lived on the streets for 30 years and he thought everybody else was a sucker. They're going to keep moving here. So the first thing that we have to do, if we want to tackle the homeless problem, is we have to stop going and sourcing funds to provide more services for the homeless, because then they'll stop coming here. Then we can figure out how many homeless do we actually have here. And we can say, okay, this is the approach we're going to take, which I don't think there's a all-encompassing approach that works. Unfortunately, when you deal with those people in those situations, you do have the people that suffer from mental illness. You have the people that are, suffer from the drug addiction. But, you have people like my uncle, and I'm very gun shy because I saw this. He overdosed in July of 2020. But he was a very high-functioning individual, from the point of he could go from being passed out in front of the HEB at Zarzamora and Fredericksburg Road on the sidewalk to 3 weeks later he's involved in a $500,000 Medicare scam. And I mean, that's the reality of the situation. So, this Ron's approach of we'll just get more money and we'll build this housing and we'll put them in these houses is not going to solve the problem. Help without responsibility is only going to create a bigger problem. I mean, look at the crime situation. Since 2019, which, he was a supporter of cite and release, theft in this town has exploded. I mean, they all claim, well, cite and release saves us $5.2 million a year in booking fees at the jail. Well, if you have a 17% increase in burglaries in a $70 billion economy, $5.2 million really isn't a lot of money. And another thing I will bring up is a lot of his policies, such as supporting cite and release, there's unintended consequences. And we were talking about construction costs and housing costs. When they implemented cite and release in 2019, take someone like myself who deals with 18-wheelers, large trucks that have commercial driver's license, drivers who have to have a CDL. So they have to be drug tested, right, in order for them to get on the insurance, and the state requires it. On the federal level, it's all required. When they put cite and release in place in 2019, because it loosened restrictions on marijuana, my insurance agent told me that the actuaries at the insurance companies, which assess the risk for policies, that in markets that have cite and release, especially when it comes to marijuana, that they deem there's a greater chance or there's a greater risk of, should there be an incident, that driver testing positive for marijuana. Well, at this point, my insurance is up 80% since 2019. Because the problem is, if all of us go out and we get drunk tonight and we go get in a truck tomorrow morning and get in a wreck and we go take a post-accident drug test, we're not going to pop positive for alcohol or anything like that. But if all of us smoke a joint tonight and 10 days from now we get in an accident and we get sent for a post-accident drug test, we're positive for marijuana. So now Thomas J. Henry, Carabin and Shaw, all the ambulance chasers, I mean, that's the silver bullet for them. So that's another policy that Ron has been behind that has inadvertently driven up the cost of construction. I've heard a lot of praise for his leadership during Corona. I really don't see where any of that leadership took place at. I mean, coming on the news every day, reading statistics, and then telling people to put a mask on and leaving did nothing for small businesses. I mean, fortunately, because the business that we're in, a lot of that stuff wasn't applicable to us because we weren't a storefront, right? But I mean, a lot of people who own storefronts, I mean, they were wondering from week to week, what's going to come next, or what's the plan? I mean, my take on it is with the resources the city has, with UTL Science Center and everything else, instead of relying on just a top-down from Washington to San Antonio approach, I mean, he should have been proactive in saying, partnering with these agencies we have here and saying, okay, what can we do here in town? What's the best plan so I can tell the people, so I can tell the small businesses, hey, this is what the landscape's going to look like in 60, 90, 120 days. That way people could have planned, hey, tell employees, okay, I'm going to have to lay you off for a couple weeks, or, not try and keep them on. So I think he really failed when it came to Corona, which, put a lot of small, especially, and they mostly were minority-owned businesses, small businesses. A lot of them are out of business because of that. A lot of that, letting the city work from home, which, there's more an Eric Walsh decision, who's the city manager. That delayed permitting processes for new neighborhoods and things. So that was a big driver of the increased housing cost. And then again, like I said, I mean, he's led council. I think he's right now chairing a deal for the U.S. Mayor's Conference about combating hate crime and domestic terrorism within cities. I mean, what does that really have to do with San Antonio? I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw a hate crime take place here. I mean, everybody, if left alone, seems to work things out on their own. Be here and be out with transportation and capital improvements and see the infrastructure. Long story short, I felt there's been no leadership on anything that is actually important to the city from